So I've held quite a few different roles throughout my career. I was a frontline social worker within children and families, older people services and justice services. I was then a first line manager within older people services before moving on to work within justice services. As a middle manager, I was working across services, across justice services, substance misuse services, out of hours services, and also children and family services. And then currently working as a senior manager as well.
I started off working as a community care social worker, focusing specifically a lot of the time on work with older people, which was an area of work which I feel very passionate about. I've also worked as a team manager, managing services for older people and people with physical disability. I went on to be a social work lecturer, which was a role that I very much enjoyed, about being able to kind of develop and contribute to the development of new practitioners moving into social work. And I spent time working in commissioning. I've also worked in England for a short period of time. So I've really kind of had a very kind of varied career, but a lot of it has focused on direct social work practice, on managing services, and a period of time involved in social work education.
So I came through the drugs and alcohol field because even once I qualified as a social worker, I wanted to stay there. Drug issues, major issue across childcare, across justice. So I always found that I worked in the drugs field for 20 years, and for many people in social work, they say, how do you do that? It's not a first choice for a lot of people, but I always found it really rewarding. When you help work alongside somebody with a drug problem and you see the progress they make, it's just so utterly rewarding and life-changing for them that it's really, for me, it was always worth it. But I moved on really and quite quickly, I guess, into management as well, and I've done 3 jobs where I've also managed NHS services. So I've been a director of health and social care, a director of the general manager for the addiction service in Glasgow, and then a director of health and social care in Ayrshire as well, after having been a director of social work. So I've had lots of different jobs.
So inevitably, because I've worked in social work for now nearly 35 years, I've had a number of different roles as a social worker and a team manager, service manager. I've worked in residential care, I've worked in field work, managed assessment and care management teams, managed in-house services, and also commissioning and contracting teams. After I left the local authority, I went to work for a couple of years in the Scottish Government, supporting the development of policy and strategy, particularly around self-directed support and unpaid carers policy. From which I returned to work in local authority social work, and then moved into work for the Care Inspectorate for 5 years, where ultimately I had the role of Chief Inspector for Adult Services. After which I moved to work as a Chief Officer of a Health and Social Care Partnership, before I moved into my current role as the Director of Social Care in NHS Education for Scotland.